tell me just, people are in this real estate market. It's chaos. People are bidding up houses again. Everybody's got, the multiple offer syndrome, I suppose. You were just saying something about how people now want houses even more because they can't have them.
Isn't that crazy that, so if you look at 2008, we've gone, basically the product available has gone down 425% since 2008, and the sales activity is up about 56%. So it's like you have 100 fish in the pond, nobody cares about the fish in the pond, now there's like 4 left, everyone wants the 4 fish left in the pond,
sure.
right? So I thought it was really interesting what Ben was talking about from a clarity perspective. All of a sudden when there's no fish in the pond, you want it, and your clarity really gets knocked off, and there's a kind of a tension. I need that home. Mm-hmm. And so you have to really know what you want before you jump into that market right now.
Yeah. And how do you help somebody understand that? Because, of course, people go in with the notion, I need to buy a house.
Right.
And keeping people, I guess, grounded throughout this process when it's so chaotic must be difficult.
Yeah, it is. Like real estate is such a beautiful... I love real estate, obviously, Ben, but there's different types of real estate. There's investment real estate, and there's also your home, which is really an emotional purchase. It's a family lifestyle. It's a very emotional... You have to love it, right? You're going to live there. So when you have somebody who loves something, obviously the emotions go up and the logic drops. But what we're looking at right now is an absorbency in the market of about 97%. Which is the most extreme. I've actually been doing this for 19 years, and I've never seen this extremity in the marketplace. So what happens in a really extreme market, statistically, the emotions are just running ragged. So if somebody says, hey, I'll buy the house for 500, and then somebody else says, no, like an auction,
Sure.
And then it goes, oh, I'll buy it for 520. And then the honey says, no,
hey,
honey,
now 520, 520, can I get 540, 540?
Exactly. So it's like, and then your wife says, I need that home, Steve. What do you got to do? You got to dig deep, right?
Right.
And that's all of a sudden it's like the logic's dropping. What can I afford? What's my lifestyle? What's my long-term goals? So like what Ben was talking about. So I think the first thing is you definitely need to know what can you afford, what's the math, and then going in and having a pretty tight parameter set out there before you jump into that bidding scenario.
Yeah. And so when somebody goes into these bidding scenarios, is there any... We talked a little bit about this at the beginning. There are some strategies out there.
Right.
But when it kind of comes down to it, isn't it about the money?
Yeah, it is. In fact, just as we were doing the radio show there, I'm getting some text back on another offer I'm doing this morning. So there's definitely, there's the market where people say, let's send a photograph of the family and, the 3 kids, the golden retriever, and maybe that's going to influence the seller. I think the reality is that all the transactions I'm involved in, most people really look at money, or they look at the risks associated with a transaction.
When you're in some of the higher echelon of homes that you're selling to, a lot of the luxury homes,
right?
I guess, when you're looking at $4 million houses, it's like, yeah, well, I know that you guys want to move in, but, so does this guy.
Yeah, it does. So the fun thing is as a seller, you're definitely in a strong position. The flip side to that is when a buyer walks in and there's 4 buyers there, how do you navigate to choose the right buyer? And as a buyer, how can you look through a seller's lenses to make you come across as that person, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a few things I think that would be really important. The first thing is that I'm seeing happening a lot right now is a pre-inspection. Mm-hmm. So when the house comes on the market and the 4 offers come in, well, as a seller, you know that the minute the deal is done, you choose that buyer, you lock in with that buyer, another 3 buyers then move on to the next house, right? So you have to kind of get that relationship. So the first hurdle to navigate through is, how is my house looking? So is it an older home? Is it a newer home? If it's new construction, not such a big deal, but if it's an older home, an inspection could be an expensive situation. So the first thing is that some people are doing is do a pre-inspection. So the house comes on the market on Thursday, we're going to review offers on Sunday or Monday, get the inspection done.
9 inspectors are going through the house at once.
Right. Well, what happens is, when you choose your buyer as a seller, you've chosen the person who's not going to come back and renegotiate. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think would be is making sure they're financially strong. Because when an appraiser comes in, he's looking historically at the comps, right? And if the market's going up maybe 1% per month, which is what people are quoting right now. So if your house, you pull a comparison for 2 months ago, that could be a $40,000, $50,000 difference in price. And the appraiser doesn't like that, right? So if you have a strong buyer with a strong down payment, that's a much better option. So I think pre-inspection, getting your finances in order, is a couple of things I think that would help a lot with.
With getting that offer. I like how you say, you have to make yourself, I guess, the shining buyer through the seller's lenses.
Right.
Because I guess but sellers are all going to be looking at different things.
Right.
How do you figure out what the lens looks like for the seller to make yourself shine?
Well, I think obviously a good strong letter from your lender. The pre-inspection looks good. One thing that really is a great idea, and people are using that a lot. It was used in like 07, 08, but it's an escalation clause. So there's a clause in a transaction. So say, for example, the property is listed for $500,000 and there's 5 offers, right? So I don't want to go in and say, let's offer $575 where the other offers are $525. So we can do a thing called an escalation clause. And what that does is I'll offer $525. So I'll give you a good offer, Mr. Seller, and I'll offer to beat any one of the other offers up to $5,000 over whatever they bid. So somebody else comes in at $560. I'll offer this basically ostensibly is $565. And if there's no other offers for $525 or whatever, we'll buy it for $525. So the escalation clause helps a lot in 2 ways. It helps you compete for money, and it looks good. It makes you come across strong, and it also helps with the appraisal. When the appraiser turns up to do the appraisal and we have a list price of $500 and it's sold for $575, it looks kind of funky. But if we can show the other offers that came in at $565,
a paper trail,
it shows that the market has spoken. And an appraiser can't really negotiate too much with that if you have 3 or 4 other offers in that price point. So positioning yourself with an escalation clause would definitely be good for the seller and also for the buyer.
Stephen MacDonald joins us with John L. Scott Real Estate. Stephen, so when people are out and they are going through these as a buyer, you're going through, you're maybe going to have to get in pre-inspection. You're going to have a good relationship with the lender. Know you're going to have to potentially put down a big down payment. You may have to go through an escalation clause.
Right.
That must scare some people. It was kind of like what Glenn was saying earlier. It becomes kind of a process. You don't just go one day, decide you're going to buy a house, and then the next day you're ready.
Right.
It could be quite the, go get pre-approved, which can take a little bit of time.
Right.
You got to go figure out what your actual down payments are. Maybe you should go talk to your financial planner about how many assets you can pull out.
Right.
You potentially need to figure out with your financial planner also, like, what should your monthly budget be so you're not blowing all of your other financial goals out of the water with your house. I see, and I know this coming from the lending standpoint, is that a lot of people don't go through all those steps.
Right.
Like you said, it's an emotional purchase. I want that house, and I'm going to do it by all means necessary. Do you see that?
Yeah, no, I see that a lot right now, and it's kind of scary. You have that look in somebody's eyes. I want that house, Stephen MacDonald. You're like, really? So let's talk this through. And I love what Ben was saying. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture, And I always thought, and I think this is slow in and slow out. Real estate's not like you could call your broker, you sell your Apple, Mac, your stocks. You have to, it's slowly purchasing and it's slow to sell. And I think if you have that mindset, real estate is is a good friend to you. But when you have to make these push choices,
sure.
The other side of it is, though, when you look at the statistics and you look at the pond of only 2, 4, 6 fish, and there's normally 100, and you see people coming in, interest rates low, it is a smart move to buy. And there's a threshold there that's going to go in your favor, right? That the market doesn't look as if it's going to change in the next so many years. So if you need to buy, it would be a very smart thing to do. So a lot of people are thinking the same way,
right?
Which is kind of encouraging. If you're the only person buying, that may be a lot more worrying.
There was only a few people buying stocks when the market was at 6,000. There was only a few people buying houses a couple Februaries ago. Right. And they seem to have the last laugh, so...
there's one thing, Ben, I know that's right. One interesting thing is the idea of is when somebody goes to sell their home as a real estate agent. What I'm seeing is people get their agent, they put their house in the market and they sell it in 2 days, and they think their agent's a hero, right? Which is nice as an agent. I love that. But the reality is...
when the ticker tape parade goes down and it's all in it for you.
It's all good. But the flip side is, though, as a seller, you need to have as much exposure as possible. So you can sell your house in 2 days, but there's a certain program now that most agents are shifting to where you do a pre-listing launch. So the 5 buyers who couldn't buy the other house down the street, we need to make sure these 5 people know this house is for sale. So there's a pre-listing launch, and then what you do is you create enough activity over a 4 or 5 day period. So when you do get all the offers in, you do know that every single person has had a chance to bid on that house. And when that happens, we're seeing the prices going up significantly. So as a seller, there's things you have to do as well in this crazy market to not just leave money on the table.
Yeah, I would imagine that marketing that house initially is a really big piece of the puzzle because you have, as you said, you need to get as many people through it. But at the same time, that the quick that quick sale
Right.
feels good,
Right.
but you maybe have lost a little because you're impatient.
Right. So, for example, on Friday, I listed a duplex in Seattle, and I listed for $440, a good healthy price, and I got an offer in for $450 cash as long as we get it accepted by tonight. And I saw all the amount of phone calls, hits online, etc. with my website. I know that I can get more than that. So we ended up, another offer came in for $565 if you accept it tonight. You know, we see all these games try and close the deal before it gets full activity.
Right.
So we sold it actually this morning for $585. So the idea is, I think you have to give your seller a fair crack at exposure to the market.
Because most buyers aren't just going to walk away right now. I mean, buyers aren't going to go, oh, well, this, like you said, there's only a few fish in the pond.
Right.
So you're not throwing any back if you get one, most likely.
Exactly. And it's because the idea is that the buyer says, if you don't accept my offer by tonight, I'm going to walk away. I'm like, fine.
Yeah,
really?
okay.
And
so
none of them walked away out of all
Right.
the offers, right? So we had actually 7 or 8 offers.
That's a pretty big bluff to throw out there, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. But I mean, you need a strong agent who's not going to, like the seller's like, should we take it? It's a cash deal. I mean, not really. I mean, if we get $585 and the appraiser comes in at $565, we're still 20 grand ahead.
Right.
Right. So no, I think this is the market for mature people. That's my take right now, man.
Sure. I've heard that a lot. A lot of the people who are coming into the industry are a little overwhelmed.
Right.
And in fact, another reason that a buyer can look good to a seller is by having a really good agent who has experience in their corner.
Right.
I've heard that more and more, that, hey, people will throw out an offer based on the real estate agent, not on the numbers.
Right.
Based on, hey, I know that guy and he does good work, rather than never heard of that person, or that's a schlocky agent.